chief of police and the fire chief, all, and those positions, those are supposed to be appointed in the first meeting in May, according to statute. So do I hear a motion to amend the agenda and delete number 8?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carried, 5-0. Now we'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the amendment.
So moved.
And second,
Second.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. I don't think we have anybody here for the public forum in regards to agenda item. We'll move to number 4, approval of the consent agenda. Is there any questions in regards to that?
I have some. On item 5, 18, and 24, item 5 being a USA Blue Book, and 24 is a USA Blue Book. What are those used for, and who has them?
USA Blue Book is usually Marty's departments, are you talking on the scheduled claims list?
And why is it necessary to have 2?
And here's that. Okay, so, if you look at the very bottom of page 2, under card services, that's the vendor that we're paying, so that is our city credit cards. And so those are, everything listed under card service is all of the invoices that have been purchased on our city credit cards.
And you call it a Blue Book? Is that what you call it?
USA Blue Book is the name of the company.
Okay.
Yep.
And then on 18, it's Carhartt jean shirts. What is that?
That is electric department, so I'm guessing that would be the FR, the fire resistant clothing for our electric department.
O'Reilly, hey,
It's what?
it's the fire retardant, jeans and so forth for Riley Hay.
Okay, I'm good with it then. Thank you.
I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
motion been made to approve and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carried. Number 5, council questions, concerns, or recommendations.
I did hand out our newsletter from the museum. I would appreciate if everybody would take the time to read that, because we've really done a lot and have a lot going on there. I think, we're not really very good. We send those out twice a year, at least twice a year, to our patrons, the people that renew their membership, patron membership every year. So I thought, well, I didn't know if any of you would be patrons, so I thought you should see that newsletter, so. And we have canceled we try to have 2 programs every year, and we were supposed to have one this spring, but of course that's been canceled. And of course, in view of the huge donation that we're getting, we're very, very busy with that.
What was you gonna have? What was the program?
Hmm?
What was the program?
We were gonna have, Brian Stuckey come. He had talked at our Marion County Historical Society meeting, a year ago. And he was gonna come and talk about the trails in Marion, around Marion mainly, not the county. But I hadn't even contacted him because of everything that's going on. We've been too busy, so, which is good.
Okay, any other?
Yeah, I'd like to maybe visit a little bit about a time clock to be installed in the city shop so the employees can check in and out. I think this would give us a better handle on the comp time.
Any other discussion?
I don't know how they work, and with it being the shop, is there a way to, I don't know how time clocks work anymore. Cause it wouldn't be here that they would clock in and out.
It'd be down at the shop. Honestly, I've never done anything with it,
So I don't know.
I guess we probably have, Roger, have to research it to see. what the
Marty, are
practical-
you outside there?
Who?
Marty,
Yes.
could you step in here, please? The question's been posed regarding a time clock at the shop to physically punch in, punch out. Do we still have a time clock there?
We do not use time clocks anymore because, gosh, it's been a number of years ago. The auditors recommend that we did not use them because of if they clock in a little bit too early, there was too many discrepancies there at the 15-minute or 10-minute range. I don't know, Tiffany, if you remember that or not, it was before your time
That's
maybe.
been way before me.
So we have not used one since then. It's just everybody has their time sheets that they fill out daily, in, out, in, out.
Okay, is there still a physical time clock there?
No.
Okay. We can explore options and see what's available and.
I would like that.
I know that a lot of places, I know when I worked hospitals, they didn't allow you to clock in before 8 minutes before your time, before your shift started. To take care of that problem,
But I don't think the guys are gonna leave until after 7 o'clock anyway, so they'll be there at 7 o'clock where they can talk.
Well, my question would be, how do they, if they're called out in an emergency, you know,
How they're
water
able
line
to
break
clock
or
in and
whatever? I mean, are they gonna have to go to the shop and clock in, and then go back to the shop and clock out?
Well, chances are they'd have to go to the shop anyway to pick up supplies and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think they'd have to go anyway, David.
I just think this is a better way to control comp time.
We'll explore options on what
Thank you.
equipment, and you'll need to check with someone, G-Works, and see how we can get it to interface.
if there isn't a chance that they would have to go to the shop before they go to an emergency or something, they can always fill out a timesheet and Marty could have to sign it
Correct.
to
Just a
avoid it.
question, is there an issue? I mean, has there been a problem?
She's
No,
talking about
I
all
just-
the comp time.
I just think it'd be a better way of controlling comp time, to see what we're actually doing.
Why don't, you check with the auditors and ask them if that was a concern of theirs, with having clocking in, clocking out as opposed to the way they're doing it now. And then go ahead and do some research on purchasing. I know they've got them to the point now where you can actually use a fingerprint to clock in and clock out. Those are probably more expensive, but there's all kinds of them you could probably research and see what the different kinds are. Okay, any other concerns, recommendations, questions?
I got one.
Okay, go ahead.
Emailed Roger about this. A lot of places are, making playground equipment inaccessible. Little kids, hands, dirty faces. And Roger explained, we put a notice up, right?
Right, they're laminated signs that went on with physical equipment.
I guess, in my mind, it's kinda like, I'd rather see us err on the side of not making them available than err on the side of accessibility, and then something turns up that may or may not have been from there. Just something to think about.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure.
Are you requesting a physical barrier deterrent?
Well,
I've seen
Visual
people
barrier?
use a little yellow thing around them with a sign, keep off or something, just, not chain link fence or anything like that, just police tape, you can rip it off if they want to, but about anything you do, they could do. I'm not talking about anything expensive, just something on hand. I'm just throwing it out there as a topic of discussion, is that something that,
Well, it's certainly something we can do.
I haven't really seen, I don't know, in my travels back and forth, I haven't seen anybody in the park at all since we said.
is there activity in the park? I don't.
Very low.
Some people still walk around it, which is fine. They're not touching anything when they do that.
I think one of the things that's, on the governor's recommendations is you can still use walking trails. That's
Mhm.
correct.
That's correct.
Yes,
It encourages people to get outdoors, just use social distancing, and try to increase physical activity outdoors.
It didn't say anything about playground equipment.
No, I think
I think it does, doesn't it?
I think it did address that,
Yeah, they're supposed to be close.
but it did talk about the walking trails would remain open. But, there you go, I mean, if you cut the park off, you gotta know that's where the walking trail is.
If there's signs on the equipment,
There's signs on the equipment, the restrooms are closed,
Right.
the water fountain.
shut off,
It's not on yet.
It's not on, so.
yeah, right. But
Then we could put up the caution tape.
What's the sign say? I know you told me in the email,
it's in Margot's
Yeah.
notes too,
Yeah,
on our,
in her report this week, she put,
yeah,
we didn't include a copy of the sign, but
yeah.
I can email. Basically, it's informing the parents that there's a risk that the playground equipment is closed. But we didn't put up any physical barrier to curtail the use, and then it comes down to what is the policing behind such an action?
I don't think we need policemen in the park on permanent basis.
Well, I like the idea of putting a caution tape around it because the weather's getting warmer and there's gonna be more kids outside. And so there will be more activity in the park.
You just need to know what's the desire of council, and we'll execute whatever you like.
I don't know, I think caution tape's probably gonna be torn down. And I think the signs, plus was it out in the newsletter too, for parents to realize that children are not supposed to be playing on equipment?
I don't,
I've seen it,
It's on her Facebook page.
yeah.
I don't think a land utility is gonna.
How about an announcement in the paper? I mean, if we put something to the effect of, the city's not responsible for any transmission of children playing on playground equipment when that is discouraged. I don't know.
If we're gonna declare ourselves exempt from the law, you need to run that by our legal counsel.
Yeah. I don't know. I just don't know that caution tape's gonna hold up. It might be more of a pain to. I personally was kinda glad that the restrooms have been locked because we had so much trouble with them, with vandalism and stuff. Clinton, do you have any comments?
As
Do your
far,
guys
how,
notice
how
much?
far do you wanna go as far as shutting stuff off? Cause we had somebody today ask if they could sit on a picnic table and use the Wi-Fi, as opposed to sit in their car and use the Wi-Fi. So I referred them to Margot to see if that was off limits to them or not. So then do you do park benches and how far do you go to limit what people can and can't touch? I don't, that question came up a couple hours ago. Somebody called and said that they needed to use the Wi-Fi. Wanted to know if they could sit in their vehicle and use the Wi-Fi, which that seems to be the most traffic in the park at this point. Is
Yeah.
people using the same people that have always every morning go down there to use the Wi-Fi.
Guess they could sit on the car.
Right.
But it was nice of them to ask.
The thing about playground equipment, it's metal and plastic, and that's probably the worst surface that anybody could come in contact with, where a bench or a concrete table would probably not transfer as much. I've just had some people ask about it, and I said, I don't think it's a bad idea.
Well, we'd have to, I mean, Central Park's not the only park that's got playground equipment either, so we'd have to look at East Park
East Park, Ann's Park,
and
Liberty
we've
Park.
got the,
just has-
you know, we've got the gazebo in Liberty Park. I mean, it wouldn't take that much to take some of his police tape and just tie it on to a post and just, you know, wrap it.
You could try
Wrap
it,
'em.
see what happens.
Yeah, if it gets to be torn down, put up, torn down.
Yeah.
Well, we've
We
seen
don't
how
need to
quick
fight
it
that
takes them to
battle.
do that. Why don't we try that? Just,
Do we have the tape?
oh,
Yeah.
he's got,
We'll take care of it tomorrow morning.
Okay.
he's got tons of it.
That'd be great,
It's
But,
not gonna be pretty, but
never is.
I don't know.
you need to do East Park and, Liberty Park and Ann's Park. We don't have any playground equipment in Ann's Park.
There's a tire swing.
There's a tire swing out there and
There's
Sometimes
disc
senior
golf,
Okay.
but I don't know how you could do anything with that. I've never seen anybody out there playing it anyway.
Okay, moving right along, this, kind of what we're talking about now, discussion on the COVID-19, initial response and future projections. Roger?
well, we've already discussed some of the responses. We've limited access to the public buildings, museum, libraries currently, shut down. We did leave the Wi-Fi going and posted the signs on the park. The bigger concern moving forward, is the financial impacts that we're already seeing. With the governor's orders, utilities, there'll be no disconnects. But unfortunately, your bills continue, late fees, all of this are in place, okay? And we anticipate that there will be, once the stay-at-home order is lifted, it's going to have a financial impact on our utilities for non-payments, trying to get back up to speed, all of that type. We've got individuals that, they're on a lease purchase with the city that indicate they have no revenue stream, and they're already requesting, how can we make a payment plan, or how do we push payments back, because their business has no revenue at this point. And because of the stay-at-home order, they really can't do interstate commerce. So that one's impacted. Right now, our recreation programs, the high school baseball season is off. So the revenues that we've generated from the concession stand out there, as well as our $2,000 support from the school district, will not be forthcoming. If this goes past May 1st, we're probably looking at a extremely shortened softball season or a complete elimination. And the Babe Ruth League currently has not made a decision. They're waiting to see what the outcome is, but everyone's kind of May 1st appears to be the time limit. The income tax has been, by executive order, moved from the 15th of April, both Fed and state, until July 15th. So the only way that impacts us is the cash flow on some of the grant programs that are out there. I have been contacted by the league, and they're in conversations with the governor right now. They're anticipating that ad valorem taxes will be second half payment moved from May 10th to July 10th. So that means our distribution would come July 25th. And the way it works out for our community, we get about 60% of our ad valorem taxes at the first payment, which is due in December. And then we get about 40% mid-year, because you have some that just pay all of it, okay? All of our bond and interest payments are set up in a manner that we're counting on ad valorem before distribution. And it's the same way that we've structured our debt obligation with the school and the pool. That second half $50,000 support payment for their bond and interest, they need it before July 1st. So all I'm doing is bringing it, money's going to get done. And our auditors have shared information, Department of Administration shared information, that we really need to be looking at reducing budgeted authority by 20%, and in some operations, be even more aggressive than that. We do have enough reserves. It will entail, and the process is we'll do a budget amendment at the end of the year. We can transfer between funds to cover the operations, cover the bond interest, so forth. But we've got to look at what projects we can postpone. Some of them we can't. We're too far into the process. And I guess right now, my goal is, our biggest asset and the way we can produce the most for the community is keeping the workforce as complete as possible. Now, there may be some positions that simply there's nothing going on. There's no rec program, okay? There won't be swimming, there won't be likely softball. So it may become necessary to look at those positions very strongly as we're moving forward. But I don't think that's our intent to make wholesale changes immediately. And looking to you all for your thoughts and direction. Is there anything specific you would like your staff to look at, start doing right now?
Another area we're gonna lose a lot of revenue in is sales tax.
Yes.
So they've already canceled Chingawassee Days, and that brought in a lot of sales tax. Our businesses are all closed, that's not bringing in any sales tax.
Yeah, the March number's still held up for us at 2.4% increase over a year ago, but that's February sales.
Yeah.
And what was collected there. We're anticipating around 35 to 38% reduction in the April number to a year ago. The impacts on the total year, sales tax generated about $185,000 for us. We're probably looking somewhere around 120 is what will be generated. So a sizable adjustment tied to those things.
why is it the school has to have that payment by the 1st of July when we don't get our taxes now till the end of July?
When the bond payments due.
Well, I know, but can't the school
But their
make an
fiscal
adjustment
year is
like it?
also,
Yeah, that's
July.
our physical year.
Yeah, they're on the state year and we're on,
Yeah, the state year has moved.
I can contact Mr. Homburg and discuss that.
I mean, that would be nice, that's 50 grand right there. I mean, it's gonna be kinda hard if we, you know, for the economy, we don't wanna lay any workers off. I don't know, a lot of those SBA things, they're allowing payments to keep people on payroll for a couple of months. So, I hate to see a cut in that direction if there's other things workers can do, but that just makes the economy worse if we go that route.
Yeah, the
Instead of-
number, let me see, 55,800 is what the number of unemployment claims last week
Yeah,
here in Kansas. The national numbers just
it's insane.
beyond what I can fathom.
6 million was sold, but that was like a week ago.
Yeah, it's
Sure it's more now.
11.5 million right now on federal unemployment roll. Our state did waive the waiting period, there's no longer the 1 week. And they've extended benefits from 16 weeks to 26. But the funding behind that is it goes back to the employer to pay the additional 10 weeks of unemployment. So the impact for small businesses, government, all of that, if the economy doesn't get its legs back under it quickly, that additional 10 weeks of unemployment will end up being assessed back to the small businesses.
I don't even foresee it being lifted by May 1st. They're talking our biggest curve, as we can see, it's finally hit our county. That our biggest curve is gonna be in the next 10 days to 2 weeks. That puts us in the 3rd week of April. How in the world are they gonna lift that in Kansas by the 1st of May? I don't see it happening. I know everybody wants it to happen, but I don't see it happening.
Okay, where we're at right now, project-wise, Elm Street has to continue. The guys are just about finished, or did you finish the access road today?
We got most of the bigger riprap in place, now we're putting the fill coat. There'll be a 3rd coat if we want it later on when it's all finished, but to get the project done, we're putting the 2nd layer on as of today, so probably another 2 days, that portion will be complete.
And we've signed the documents to get that, notice to proceed and move through on that project. I'm waiting to hear back from APAC and the state, on West Main, which was supposed to start the 1st week of May. I've gotta find out where we're at on that particular project. We've already ordered and are committed on the transformers for the 12.5 upgrade going to the hospital, down through that area. We've already got on hand the supplies. There may be 1 or 2 interconnection items for the solar field, but everything else is landed, we have it in our possession, so we'll be moving forward with that one. We're still waiting for the big pad mount transformer to come in. It's a step-up transformer to go from the lower voltage from solar panels up to the higher voltage. That's on order, has not been invoiced or paid, so that one's still coming. I believe that's just under $8,000. So we've looked at all of the projects, where we're at, what has to move forward, and things that we can back off a little bit. We want to make make sure we're all in the same, that nobody can define with any certainty right now what the final impact, fiscal impact is going to be.
No, but at this time, we need to be very conservative.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe inform the department heads that they need to cut out all the smaller expenses, because that adds up. And I'm referring to the fire department that's doing these controlled burns. What do those cost?
Okay, first off, there's a misunderstanding there. Those
Okay.
controlled burns are authorized by the county. They're the only one that has control over that.
I understand
The
that.
townships pay if one gets out of control and our firefighters have to respond. It's paid by the township. City of Marion does not pay the fire call or the fuel or anything related to it. We do not have the authority outside of our corporate city limits to impose a burn ban, all of that. It has been, taken it to Rick Wilborn, our senator, who's taken it to the governor, requesting that the burn season end early. It is a respiratory illness, and then it's adding pressure and stress on the small community. As of this morning, the county has made no action to impose anything, nor has the state and the governor's office.
So the city only goes out if they're called, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And I verified with our department that they're not doing any training burns or any of this type stuff at this time.
There's none of our trucks that even go. It's all county trucks.
Township.
Township, yeah.
Yeah.
Still county.
Yeah,
Townships in the county, aren't they?
a smaller part.
Well, the county doesn't claim any part of the township.
Right.
No, they don't.
Thanks for clarifying. I think we just need to move forward status quo and just watch our expenses. Until we get over the hump on this thing, and then we can move back to what we've been doing. Any other discussion? On number 6? Okay, item number 7, resolution 20-02, temporarily expanding the authority of the mayor and city administrator to act on behalf of the city and ratifying previous decisions regarding COVID-19 emergency. Audrey?
Okay. We received a communication from the league that they're recommending, because cities have taken a lot of actions already, closing buildings to the public, all of this. And Kansas home rule allows us to do that, but it needs to be done by an action of the elected officials. I believe everybody has been supportive of what we've done, and now closing down the playgrounds and a few other things. This resolution simply grants the ability for those decisions, and then basically is saying in a retroactive manner that this governing body approved our actions that we've taken to this point in addressing an emergency that's been declared at a national level, at a state level. In our county, the county commission has not declared it as a local emergency, but it has been declared as a local health emergency by our health department. And the resolution's written, it's David and I, to a large degree, that's how all these decisions have been made since we've been going. He and I are talking and meeting before we actually move on anything. So we would ask your approval of this resolution.
I so moved.
Have a motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. We skip to number 9. contractor / developer agreement for South Coble Street project. Randy?
Thank you, Mayor. Both of items 9 and 10 are both related to the Coble Street addition. You should have in your packets. The first document is the services provider agreement that Mr. Strawn has asked the city to sign. It basically just declares what his responsibilities are here, and it's constructing 5 single homes described, and for the cost of $175,000 as a base cost. He asked for this to take to his lenders so that they have something that, you know, they actually have in hand, so that his lenders will be a little more favorable to him, so that he can show them what the overall job is. The second document is simply the warranty deed for lot 9, the first home that we have a contract on. We are transmitting this deed to Strawn Homes, Inc., again, so that he has ownership of the lot right up until the closing time when he hands the keys to the new owners. And I'm asking your approval for these documents.
So how we do 2 agreements into one?
Well, we'll just do them separately.
Yeah.
We'll do them separately. That's the way we listed on the,
Yeah.
on there.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that confusion.
I get confused easy.
Jerry, these days I am too, so.
Is there any questions from the council? I move to accept the agreement between Strawn Homes Incorporated and the City of Marion to establish the developer-city relationship as recommended by the Kansas Housing Resources Corporation and their Moderate Income Housing Grant Program. There a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried 5-0. The second portion is the transfer of the deed for Coble Street addition, lot number 9. Is there any questions regarding that from the council? Hearing none, I move to transfer the deed of Coble Street addition, lot number 9 to Strawn Homes Incorporated for the purpose of construction of homes for the Mercers under the City of Marion and the Kansas Housing Resources Corporation Moderate Income Housing Development Grant Program. I hear a second.
Second. But I have a question.
Okay.
When do the taxes go back on?
Actually, the taxes are,
Exempt?
no, the taxes are out there now at $170, I think, for the lot. So it will stay at $170 until the construction is actually complete. He hands the keys to the new owner, and at that point, they'll be on the county tax rolls as the new owner,
So
with the addition of the home.
So you'll have to pay the taxes before all this is over then?
We've already paid the taxes.
Sorry, we don't split our taxes, we just pay them.
All right, that's a good question. That's a good question. Any other questions? Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried 5-0.
Mr. Mayor, I believe Tiffany has original documents for your signature, if you please, tonight or tomorrow morning, either one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Number 11, renewal EMC commercial insurance portfolio. Alex, Casey's not here.
Yeah, he is.
Is he?
He wants a check.
He showed up, actually.
Back there where I'm supposed to be.
How about that? He's hiding around the corner.
Okay, if I stand here, or you want me?
Either one.
You can do whatever you want.
Alright. Okay, it is time for the insurance renewal. Actually, April 1st is your renewal date. I think you've all got a little handout that I sent over this morning. I thought I would just briefly go over the coverages for those of you who are not familiar with it, or those of you who have been involved with it for a few years. And I'll try to be as brief as I can and go over a few things, and then any questions I'd be happy to entertain. The package is made up of commercial property coverage, which is obviously all the buildings, all the personal property in the buildings, substations, just about all the water plant, all the property that the city owns. We've also got a second commercial property section that is, covers the hangars out at the airport. They're on a separate schedule because they're in a different fire protection class. They're out in the country. We've got our general liability that protects the city from claims from the public, which we have quite a few every year. They're unavoidable. Every now and then sewer backs up into somebody's house. They think it's the city's fault, so they file a claim. We turn the claim into EMC. EMC determines whether the city was negligent or not, and either pays the claim or denies it. Your linebacker coverage is the city's E&O policy. It protects the administrators, it protects all of you council people. If you make a decision that someone thinks is not right or that it harms them and they file a suit, then unlike the general liability policy, claim is filed the same way. EMC provides legal defense, and they'll come in and determine whether the city was negligent for the error or omission. We have law enforcement liability coverage, which is pretty, just like it says, it's liability for the law enforcement. Cyber solutions is something that's fairly new. That's data compromise and identity recovery coverage for computer systems. If somehow personal information gets leaked out there, we've got coverage for that. Government crime and fidelity is internal crime coverage. Commercial inland marine covers all the city's mowers and street sweepers. Well, maybe not street sweepers, graders, things that are not licensed for road use, but are mainly motorized equipment. Then we have our business auto, which covers our fleet, all of our vehicles that the city owns. And last but not least, our commercial umbrella policy, which provides $1 million over and above all of our other coverages. So that's like an umbrella, just like the name says. So this year, unfortunately, the premium went up a little bit. If you compare just the plain numbers, it appears that that it's up a little bit more than it is. The business auto premium last year, we had a lot of changes. The renewal premium's up a little over $3,300. However, most of this is due to 3 new vehicles that we added during the policy period. And my figures were incorrect there. The net increase should be $1,155 instead of $1,549. And on the law enforcement liability side, we added a canine back into the mix this year. So there is, between the liability and the dog itself is covered if it is injured or killed in the line of duty. And so the premium for the canine liability and the canine is about $400. So the bottom line is the renewal is up a little bit this year. The net increase is about $4,400 or about 5%. So I incorrectly stated that. That was part of the numbers I had wrong with the autos. And I was going to talk a little bit about a question we had about liquor liability as it pertains to the ballroom. There is a liquor liability exclusion on the city's liability policy. However, and I'll read what I got from my underwriter. There is a liquor liability exclusion. However, the exclusion applies only if you're in the business of manufacturing, distributing, selling, serving, or furnishing alcoholic beverages. For the purpose of this exclusion, permitting a person to bring alcoholic beverages on your premises for consumption on your premises, whether or not a fee is charged or a license required, is not in itself considered the business of selling, serving, or furnishing alcoholic beverages. So the city is covered as far as alcohol being brought into the ballroom, as long as the city is not involved with furnishing it or selling it or distributing it. So, and when the MAC group was running the ballroom, anytime someone would rent it, we would require them to provide a certificate of liability insurance. Most homeowners insurance companies provide liquor liability as part of their coverage. I asked the underwriter about this. She said it was a good idea, but it was not mandatory. So if that helps you anyways moving forward, EMC is not gonna require that you require a certificate from somebody renting the ballroom.
And do we require them to have a license to bring it in and sell it? Or they weren't selling?
No, there's
They
no,
weren't
as far as,
selling. Okay.
the way it used to be, there's no
Okay.
selling of it, it's just
Right,
furnishing it for wedding receptions
yeah,
and such.
okay.
Of course, if this is a prolonged depression, we'll wanna hire a bartender instead.
Tomorrow?
I also wanted to talk a little bit about the losses. Last 5 years combined, the city's had a loss ratio of 14.7%, which is outstanding. That's really, really good. That does have some bearing on the dividend checks that we've been able to present to the city. Last year was the biggest one I can remember, of a little over $17,000. The year before was $14,000, and we've delivered a check to the city for 12 consecutive years, averaging almost $12,000 a year. So hopefully we'll see one similar to last year's in a few weeks.
That would be.
I can't guarantee it, but it has to do both with the experience of the school or the city program overall and with the local experience. So as long as they have a good year overall and City of Marion has a good year, the checks keep getting bigger, so. Any questions?
Casey, you said the umbrella policy is $1 million. It seems like a pretty low number for a operation that has as many assets and people.
Well, and, you know, it really doesn't have anything to do with the assets, it's on the liability side. So if we had a big, automobile liability claim, I think you got $1 million per occurrence and $2 million aggregate. So if it exceeded that $1 million per occurrence, then you'd have another $1 million on top of that. Same with the general liability and the linebacker. I was thinking about that today when I was looking through this. There's a couple of things we could look at. We could look at a bigger umbrella policy, or we could look at increasing the limits on the business auto and the general liability.
And I would encourage council, before we consider any of those changes, as a duly incorporated municipal corporation, we are covered by Kansas liability law called tort law, which limits our exposure to $500,000 in any legal proceeding. So with the Kansas law, as long as we're not grossly negligent, thank you very much. That kicks in, limiting the amount that can be sought. And then with our current portfolio of insurance, it basically gives us a triple layer coverage.
And I have been in meetings where they have discussed that tort law, and I don't remember enough about it to say anything that makes any sense. But what they teach us at insurance school is that anybody can be sued at any time for any reason, for any amount. But so I'm not arguing with you, Roger, on this.
No, not at all. I mean, it's worked well for us because in my time here, we've had one situation that could have gone, that way. EMC hired, our legal representation, and they hired the premier firm in the state of Kansas. So it never even went to a settlement point.
Yeah, that's the thing a lot of people don't understand is that, when you buy a liability insurance policy, whether it's a homeowner's or a municipality, you're also purchasing legal representation. So if somebody sues the city, you don't have to go out and hire your own attorney. EMC handles that.
I got a question.
Okay.
We still paying for the insurance for Chingawassa Days?
You were, I doubt if you will this year.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what the relationship is. We procure what's called a special event policy for the festival, and it's been running around $2,000.
$22.79 last year.
$22.79.
We pay $1,500, and Chingawassa pays the additional, because up until they started operating the beer garden, okay,
My next question.
it was $1,500. So we've continued to support at the level that we did. We're just not covering for alcoholic consumption in the park. So they're paying the premium portion of that. For Casey, it's just one check that names the city as the insured with Chingawassa Days Incorporated Committee. So we're both named as insured. Internally, we split the cost, because previous councils didn't feel it was our responsibility to cover the decision to sell liquor.
So that's not included in this?
No, that's a
That's a
separate
separate
policy. It's
policy.
called a special event policy, and it's pretty interesting. I get a list of activities from the Chingawassa committee, and I submit that to the insurance company, and they go through and they say, well, cover this, 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 and this, but we're not gonna cover this, 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 and this. So then it's up to the committee to get a certificate of insurance from whatever, like inflatables. Nobody will cover inflatables. You all seen the videos of the bounce houses going up in there, nobody wants to cover those. Interesting thing was the anvil shoot that we had for years. That was never covered. They can't get, anvil shooters can't get liability. And, our policy didn't cover it, and so it was sort of, we were flying naked and nobody knew it for years. And luckily, nobody got hit with the anvil, so.
Okay, that's all I had. I was curious about that. Any other questions for Casey? Hearing none, I would, make a motion to accept the EMC Insurance Annual Renewal for the insurance policy covering commercial properties, general liability, specific operations liability, cybersecurity, business automobile, and equipment and liability umbrella coverage in the amount of $93,559. Have a second?
I second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Can we pay you half now and half later?
Well, I gotta pay the whole thing, so I don't know if I can come up with that.
Motion carries.
What I'll do is once we receive the physical policy, I'll deliver it with an invoice.
Okay.
And any of you, don't hesitate to call me if you ever have any questions or concerns. I'm pretty easy to find. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 13, council discussion regarding potential street replacement projects. Marty?
I
You guys on before that.
Oh, tree trimming, I'm sorry. Tree trimming policies.
Two council meetings ago, the discussion was brought up about clearing secondary lines, and we would ask the staff to look at it and do some research. The ice storm of 2005, which was the risk factor that you were wanting to try to mitigate, our FEMA costs were filed at $74,344 for that event when, the lines came down. We've gone through and driven all of the secondary lines or the service lines to the home, and the electric department put together a listing there. It indicates there will be about 504 additional man hours to do the tree trimming that was located at the various addresses. That's the investments, about $9,576 over the remainder of this year in labor that we would dedicate to that. I'm not saying that's additional labor, we'll just have to reallocate, so you've got some idea of what they'll be working on, okay? And as we looked at the policy, the former policy was, I guess I'll just say, didn't seem to be very user-friendly, okay? So what we're proposing is a consumer handout brochure that our employees would be able to use as an educational piece with the customers. It's a trifold, double-sided, so it's just a small pamphlet type. When they're getting ready to go into a neighborhood and clear the primary lines, that's when they would do the secondary lines. And basically, it's going to come down to, yes, we have your permission, and then they check with all equipment, or with just hand trimming. Or, no, I assume the responsibility, stay out of my yard. And in talking with the guys, we needed to add, due to a physical barrier, we are unable to perform the needed trimming, okay? So they got a chain link fence in, cemented in the ground, or a privacy fence, okay? We can't get in there with the equipment, we can't take a boom truck in the alley with the lines and be able to get there. So it wouldn't be used often, but there are certain addresses we just can't, we can't gain the access to do it safely for our people without taking down a physical structure that they've built. And then if we make them aware, you know, in an ice storm, you're running a little higher risk than anybody else. You might want to look at what you're doing there. We've also tried to explain the tree trimming. We're not going to trim trees like an arborist. Your tree will look like an L when it's done, because we're going to clear just the line, okay? If we have to top a tree, they basically just cut a V in the top of the tree. So if it's council's desire that we go back to the policy of trimming secondary, or what we would call service lines to the home, we would like to do it in this format where there's a communications piece that our employees can share with the customers as they're there. There's advance notice before we start through a neighborhood. Everybody can kind of plan. And if we do have someone call in and they say we need to, then the guys have something in hand. They can go visit the site, talk with the customer, meet them out there and say, you know what, I can do this, this, and this, but I can't do that. And try to tie it back into, I'll just say from a consumer side, I think this is a lot better than just having a bunch of lines saying do's and don'ts.
Any questions? I can pretty much cover it all.
Most people pretty cooperative overall.
Yes.
I would think so.
And the biggest thing comes down, when they're not, they planted a fruit tree in their backyard, thinking it was gonna stay a nice 15-foot tree. But unfortunately, fruit trees can grow 30, 35 feet. And then that's when we run into problems. Well, we don't want you to cut that, you can't, you know.
Any other questions? I'll move to accept the Marion tree trimming practices policy that's presented to the council. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried, 5-0. Marty, you're up.
In your packets, you should have some information pertaining to street replacement proposals. And I got one from Heck Construction here in Marion, and another one from APAC in Emporia. The two blocks that we're looking at replacing soon, would be the 300 block in North Roosevelt and the 300 block in North Freeborn. I would say probably the 300 block in North Freeborn is worse condition than Roosevelt at this point. I wanted to kind of compare apples to apples with the 6-inch concrete and asphalt. It's got the same base, the price is obviously a little bit different. And then APAC said, well, why don't we throw in a third option? If for budgetary reasons, you wanna go for a cheaper street, and that's a 4-inch overlay with a 6-inch base. You're still gonna have the 10-inch base and overlay, no matter which option you look at. And I've made some notes down below there that these proposals are based on the city crews coming in and removing the existing pavement. And we would provide the sub base, and then the contractor would be responsible for the base, and then the overlay on top. An example, Lawrence Street, which is concrete, 6-inch concrete, from Cedar to Coble. That street is now 20 years old this year, still in pretty good shape. Most asphalt streets, you maybe get 20 years out of them, so depending on when you're looking at the money that you're gonna invest in either one, yes, the concrete's gonna be higher, but you might get another 20 years life out of it, so that's something to consider. And I was surprised it was only like right around $5,000 difference per block between the asphalt and the concrete. But I've got these numbers before the COVID-19 pandemic came out, so, you know, we talked about budget stuff earlier, so this might just be informational items at this time or comparison rates. We do have some funds available in capital improvement for street improvements, but whether we want to spend it on this or look at other patching this year, that's a decision they'll have to let us know about.
Is your recommendation concrete over asphalt?
Mine is just because of the life expectancy.
Prices. They're close, they're close together.
Not that I'll be around in 40 years to see if it's lasted that long, but
Yeah.
just going by the life or the shape of Lawrence Street, it's pretty obvious that it'll last another 20.
Okay, and the mayor had asked me to follow up with both contractors in light of COVID and everything going on. And I'm still awaiting the answer from APAC, but when they submitted their bid, it was all assumed that they would do it when they're doing West Main, from First Street to West City limits. So their equipment would already be deployed, and the mixing plant set up. Again, we're reaching out to them to make sure they're still on target for May, first week of May, for the West Main project. I talked with Mr. Head about his and indicated to him that given the uncertainty, all of this, would he be able to hold this price until we got a better idea of where we were for the year. And he indicated to me that he could hold this price for another 3 months, and then we'd discuss it at that time with us. He didn't feel that concrete was going to be impacted as far as the cost of materials that we're seeing. You know, I just have to laugh. The cost of eggs has gone up 300%. Because people are staying home and cooking more than they ever did before. Who would have thought? But
Well, without a doubt, in 3 months, APAC's gonna charge us a significant amount of money to move their equipment in here. I mean, it will raise their price up well above what head construction is quoting us, I'm sure.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I would like to move on, get one street done with Davy with concrete. You know, he's a local company, he's got some local people working here. We don't have to wait on that, do we?
Well, yeah,
APAC's not gonna lower the price.
no, they're not.
Well, if Davey's gonna hold it for three months, we're just thinking mainly about holding that money right now with this crisis going on, right?
Yeah, 3 months is not gonna make much difference, you know. I mean,
Below Smith it is.
huh?
No, it's one individual, right? That's just my feelings,
Did
I'll
Davey,
overrule that.
did Davey say if we didn't wait 3 months, how soon he'd be able to start it anyway?
I did not
Okay,
pose
that's
that
fine,
question, I'm
that's
sorry.
fine.
I mean, we might be able to do this in a month.
Yeah.
You know, all this goes away, I don't think it will.
I do know that Davy's, schedule is tied up pretty tight now at the transfer station.
Right.
So his availability, I'm not sure, I can find out for you. But he's got a lot of concrete to pour at the transfer station in the next month or so.
I'd be in favor of the concrete too, I think it just makes more sense. I mean, you really wanna look in the long run, you don't wanna long-term, not the short-term, and having that expense again 20 years down the road.
Well, none of these prices include the AB3, does it? Do they?
The prices include the 4-inch base. Now, the sub base that the city would put in, there would be some aggregate that we'd have to supply.
Right. And that's gonna be,
That would probably be 4 inches probably. Cause now you're to get down to probably dirt or mud, once you get past that 10 inch.
so 4 inches AB3 on Apex bid is $15,938. So that would be, is that for each street?
What I had to do is take their total figure and divide it out into square feet, and then go back and measure out the square foot per block, and that's how I came up with this price. Cause they weren't very clear, they just gave one number for both blocks. And being how they're different lengths, it was kinda hard to do. You had to go back and figure it out per square foot. Cause one of them's longer than the other.
That's the APAC quote you're talking about?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
I believe the mayor's question even is, you're gonna remove the street.
Correct.
Is Davy then putting the base down?
Yes.
Or you're putting the base?
Well, the city would be putting in the sub base, which is actually underneath the base of the overlayment. So we'll take it down probably 14 inches and put a layer of sub base rock in, and then that'll leave 10 inches for the base and the overlayment.
Okay, so the sub-base, you're going to use the 2 to 4 inch aggregate?
We'll put geogrid down probably, and then a larger aggregate for the sub base, like a 2 inch or possibly, I don't know if they make 3 inch, it'd probably be a 2 inch.
So given this, we're probably looking at between $8,000 and $10,000 cost of materials for the city.
That wouldn't be that much. I can figure that out. Cause if you're using 2 inch rock, we're gonna make 2 passes of 2 inch rock to get the 4 inch sub base.
Well, I don't mean to speak for the mayor, but I think we need to know that, what it's gonna be additional cost, what's the total project going to be?
Exactly, yeah.
Because it's
Per
getting
street.
that tight right now in money,
Right.
okay? I mean, yes, the concrete would cost us, $10,367 more, but we have to factor in what's it gonna cost us to buy the material.
Right.
Now, our labor, it's pretty much a fixed cost, and thankfully, the city council wants us to keep as many workers working throughout all of this
Right.
as possible. So they're making a commitment there, but we need to know what's the aggregate gonna cost us, and GeoGrid as well, I hadn't considered that cost.
when we was figuring this, we weren't anticipating, we were just gonna use that out of operational cost that we had already budgeted, so.
Should we just table this until we get past this situation and then readdress it? Or approve it tonight, or?
If I step into a contractor's role, I would be more comfortable extending my pricing for this period of time if I know I've got a commitment. So let's say it goes beyond 90 days. If he knows we said we're committed to these 2 streets with him, I think the likelihood he'll hold the price for us.
Okay. Do we have the funds available to do both streets?
It would have to come out of utility reserves and
Okay.
do an additional transfer to, street and alley or capital improvements, either one.
Okay.
Because we didn't, neither one of these projects were budgeted last August when we adopted the budget.
Right.
But the priority of council, we just don't believe in standing in the way with budgets. There's always, maybe a way to figure it out, so.
Well, our situation is such that if we don't start repairing the worst streets we've got, we're gonna lose them. We're gonna end up with some gravel streets. And I just, we're gonna be held accountable for that, if that happens. I would make a motion that we accept the bid from Heck Construction, 6-inch concrete with 4-inch base. And, with the provision that we will decide in 3 months to complete the project.
Depending on availability of funds.
Right.
I second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
If you can get the rest of those numbers to us, Marty,
Yeah, I sure
that way
can.
we will have a good idea of exactly what the costs are.
I'll work on that tomorrow.
Number 14, council consideration of library painting request. Roger?
Okay. Last year, we included in our budget, this is 2019, there were some roofing issues at the old depot that needed to be addressed, the overhangs. We took care of that, had professional roofers come in, they removed it, they put down new decking, and reinstalled all of the tiles. The under eaves now is an unpainted surface. I've looked at it, there is what was formerly painted, some of it is scaling off. But for the 2020 budget, nothing was included in the budget. The library board had issued an RFP, and they received 2 respondents on the project. One's quote was $23,800, and another one was $4,300 for the same services. The board voted to accept the bid for J.B. Baldwin at $4,300, and then brought it to Tiffany wanting to know if the city was going to pay for this, or if this was a project that they need to pay for from their endowed memorial funds. They're similar to the historic, there's a city budget that we budget and do maintenance each year, and then each of these boards has another set pool of money that's been gifts, so forth, over the years that they're holding. So Janet, with the forecasted temperatures this week, came over this morning and asked if there was any way we could get a council decision. If the city could find a way to pay for this project, this year. So that's why we're here this evening.
And they don't intend to reimburse with any of their memorial funds for that?
There's been no indication, from their board.
I realize it's something necessary, but we're talking about cutting back. You know, if they've got money, why can't they use that money to do that? I don't, you know, I'm not trying to be a downer on it, but our museum needs tons of work done too, and we're not getting any of that done, so.
It doesn't need to be done, probably, huh?
Well, it's something that could wait till next year. If we
Yeah.
wanna budget for it, then we can do that. I mean, it's not falling down, it's all still in good shape, it just needs painting.
And it's a covered area, so it doesn't really get the rain and stuff, it's just from the heat and
Correct,
everything.
it's all
that it's-
underneath area
Yeah.
that they're talking about.
I think in light of where we're wanting everybody to cut back, I think we should put a hold on it. What do you think, Ruth?
I agree.
I would agree with that assessment and let them know that if they wanna wait till next year, we can budget for it. Chris, you have any comments on it?
I'm okay with waiting.
Okay, Gary?
I am too. That's why I asked, does it really need it right now? But you
Yeah.
said it's under, so it's protected.
Yeah, the tile roofing, or there's a couple of areas that are covered with asphalt roofing, that's what takes the wind load, water load. This is all underneath, and then, I don't know if you remember the massive timber braces that
Mm-hmm.
go up, that's the other portion of this budget. So,
Why don't you just let them know then that we will budget for it next year. If they wanna get it done earlier, then they might wanna use their own time.
And just tell them in view of the fact that everybody's gonna have to cut back right now. That's,
we'll communicate that. Thank you for your consideration, and just wanting to, I mean, they'll be able to make a decision after we proceed with the year.
Okay. We're down to public forum. I don't see anybody.
Are we going to discuss Zoom for next council meeting?
We can, if you would like to go to remote meetings and close the meeting to the public, we do have a system in place that from your tablet, mobile phone, or desktop, you could participate remotely. The technology worked for our staff meeting. We had 7 people on the call. We were all able to interact and it worked. I can publish a link externally. Zoom has been photobombed several times.
That's what I was getting at.
So, as I set up the meeting, I would have to take precautionary where no one can enter the meeting without me admitting them, as the meeting host. We could do those things. The Attorney General and the league recommends us to keep our meetings open as long as we possibly can, but we have to do what's right based on the health concerns.
Well, this morning on the 6 o'clock news, the FBI released a warning about this Zoom. And that Candy's cyber harassment, and they called it Zoom bombing. And what this does, it says, one teacher was hosting a class from her high school students when an unidentified hacker broke into her meeting and yelled her personal address. Another teacher had an individual join the class and display tattoos, swastika tattoos, and in a classroom earlier this week in Florida, somebody entered the room and showed off his Gentile. So I'm not wanting to get into something like this, and I did a little research on Zoom, and you can download it, but if you're hacked, you can remove it, but it doesn't remove the hackers. They're in your system for good. And so I'm a little bit concerned about this.
is it a link for us, or do we have to download it, Roger?
It's actually a link.
Yeah, so we don't have to download it on our
No, you can click on the link and go directly to the meeting.
Okay, and so this doesn't put it in our system permanent right then?
No, right now it's only on my,
Okay.
and I did not do anything with the free version because I wanted all of the,
Yeah.
cybersecurity. And so we're just on a 30-day, we wanted to see. I believe that's really gonna have to be a decision that we make, tonight. Everyone's been extremely respectful of the social distancing. We have recorded this evening and will upload the proceedings to the City of Marion, Kansas YouTube channel. And it'll be available for, viewing by the general public. They can see all of our actions. We're being as transparent as possible. We put out the packets, all of those links are public access. And I guess a remote meeting, I guess I'll look to the press. Did the county's remote meeting work any better today?
Quite a bit better than it did, and the city of Hillsborough has gone to remote only. No one goes to their meeting room at all, not even them. And we've had the first test run with what you're talking about, Zoom GoToMeeting. And we're all having to learn new technology, me included, but it worked very well. Now, to answer your question, yes, you do have to download, but it's not much. And to give an answer to something about, we have the 30-day free version, it gives you a very short meeting time. Probably not long enough.
Yeah, the City of Marion did not go with the free option because 40-minute time.
Yeah, yeah,
this evening
you
we
have
didn't
to
work.
get the paid version to have enough time for,
Yeah, and
but
it has
it-
better
it-
security features.
yeah, but certainly, the run-through that Larry Payne at Hillsborough and I did, I was amazed. You know, it is simple at the user end. I readily admit I'm a stubborn techno idiot. I don't wanna know this stuff, and I found it easy to use.
So Ruth, I would assume that David and I will meet by next Monday and decide how our next meeting will be held
Okay.
based on what the changing conditions.
The CEO of Zoom announced that they have a 90-day plan to increase the security and privacy of this program. They're gonna be working on it.
Right, and they announced today that they've defaulted everything that a host now has to admit people, physically click on and let them into the meeting,
Okay.
where previously the protocol was if you had a link, you could join,
Oh, yeah.
okay? And they did implement those changes this morning. And you have to have a password specific to the meeting now, and so that has to be shared. You can't just hack a link, you still have to have a 6-digit passcode to get in.
Okay, so it would still stand if somebody needed to attend our meeting to address the council, they're still gonna have to have permission, and you would give them probably the password to attend the meeting. Otherwise, everyone else is not attending, they're just watching the YouTube video to see what transpired.
Correct.
Okay.
According to the Attorney General, in a time, if we did close the room, we have to be able to make accessible either a video of the proceedings or a recording of the proceedings at no cost.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
But it does not say that it has to be a live transmission.
Yeah, okay, I'm good with that. Yeah, it's just getting really, really scary, and I think any contact is just not good. I mean, I hate not being here with everyone. I think we work really well that way, but I totally understand that.
Well, I just want to make sure you understand this new environment. This is now the protocol that we're gonna do this. And we go to virtual meetings like this.
Yeah. Yeah,
Our world has changed forever.
yeah. Yeah.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I moved, entertain, do it.
Okay.